Good evening, everyone, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to be able to be with you today, to be able to share this presentation. I'm excited to talk about our topic, which is COVID-19 and its impact on employees in healthcare and business. As I was thinking about this topic, it's near and dear to me because I work as the Senior Executive Director of a healthcare facility here in Utah. And as the executive director, I get the opportunity to balance both the business side of healthcare and also focus on the key elements of providing high quality care to residents and supporting staff. And so you can imagine that during the COVID-19 pandemic, there were some challenges that came with balancing those two things, making sure that we had the opportunity to make money and keep people in their positions and jobs and still deliver the high quality care that our residents and customers expect. So I put together some thoughts, and as I was thinking about my own experiences, and I'll share a few of those with you, I also came across an article by Daniel Butcher called After a Year of COVID. He put this together in March of 2021, and really it had some great insights and interviews with CFOs who had come through the COVID-19 pandemic. And they talk about some of the lessons that they learned and some mindset shifts that they make in order to be able to be successful and support their staff and to really provide the efficient financial reporting that they needed to do. And so I'm excited to share with you some of the thoughts and that I have around my own experiences and from this Daniel Butcher's article, which were really great and interesting. I'm going to share my screen with you so that we can just see some of the talking points I put together. So as you can see here, our first slide talks about the pandemic and the impact that it had on healthcare/business, both from a care and service perspective and from a financial and well-being perspective. Employees really had to think about the risks that they were taking by showing up in a healthcare environment. It's really difficult, if not impossible, for healthcare employees to be able to be a part of working from home and that workforce that got to go mobile and go into their own homes and try to continue to function. That just wasn't a possibility. And so I think there were some lessons that we learned from having people who were putting themselves in that risk, some approaches that we took to try to help encourage them to support their families, provide high quality care, and to continue to try to help support the business. And we had to shift our focus around employee relations, around really getting personal with them and trying to understand what their needs were and what their families were going through so that we could provide for those needs and have them continue to come in and support the business. One CFO from the article says that they had to quickly shift their focus on the financial aspects of the company to considering the effects of the pandemic and what it would have on the business, on both business and employee. And so I think, as these CFOs were looking at the situations they were in, they not only were focused on what kind of financial impact they were taking, but also what their employees were going through, just as we've mentioned. I think in many cases, we function, especially in our environment, on a very static budget. We set a budget in around October at the end of the year, and then try to follow that January through December the following year. And we quickly learned that, especially during COVID, we needed to have more of a static budget type approach where the impacts that COVID-19 had, the inability to provide maybe some of the services that we needed to provide, and the ability just to, quite frankly, move residents into our business had a financial impact, and we had to make adjustments and be flexible and kind of recalculate what our targets were for 2020. And so I think that was a big takeaway from this experience, was just trying to focus on being a little bit more flexible and not being quite so static with our targets and goals for the year from a financial perspective. The pandemic had, as we've talked about, major impacts on employees. So many positions in healthcare, as we mentioned, were not able to work from home. And in the article, I love this quote from Naren Goel, who is a CFO for Effisoft, who emphasized the importance of building deeper relationships and providing proactive communication with all of the organization's key stakeholders during the pandemic. And so she really kind of emphasized the importance of building those relationships and keeping the employees connected, trying to make sure that their needs were taken care of. I also really enjoy this element of that is mentioned by another CFO, Shane Hansen, who stated it's critical to share up-to-date information and work with the team to deliver reporting on a weekly basis. And so I think what Shane is talking about here is not only did we have to focus on the employees and their needs, but from the business perspective, we had to focus on making sure that we could provide real-time data. And we had to get good at just making sure that our numbers were accurate, that we knew, in my case, how many residents were in the building, what kind of revenues we were taking in from rents on rooms, what kind of care level fees we were able to charge. And as those diminished, as we were not able to take new residents, we had to make adjustments to staffing and lower our staffing ratios so that we didn't have the overhead of excessive labor costs. And I think all of us in this room have experienced some of that, where we had to make adjustments in business. Maybe we had to cut some positions. One thing that we did in my community is, instead of cutting positions, we had some capital projects we were working on where we needed to paint some rooms and try to make sure that some of our projects weren't going by the wayside. We weren't allowed to invite contractors into our building. We had to use our own staff for pretty much everything. And so instead of cutting staff, we kind of went to work on doing some training on how to paint, and they painted rooms. They took the opportunity to help us push some of those projects forward. So our remodel projects that we were working on didn't go by the wayside. And I share that with you because I think that was an important takeaway as well, is that everybody, one of the things that this COVID pandemic did was it caused everybody to really become flexible and broaden their perspective on what they're capable of doing in order to be able to continue to provide for their family. And I think that was a main thing that we did in my business. And I think it's something to be considered going forward. How far can we spread ourselves, and how can we utilize employees as universal workers to be able to take on different projects and provide that additional support? Daniel Butcher also mentions and discusses the need to take employee morale and mental health into account. And so, we had to really come up with vitality programs to be able to support our employees. And if necessary, since they couldn't work from home, provide opportunities for them to live on site. And what that looked like. Do we have enough beds, toothpaste, food in order to be able to provide the support that these guys need? And I think that's a critical thing to think about. How flexible can you be, and how resilient are you? And I think a lot of us found out what that looks like. Many also became more aware of their employees' needs and built stronger relationships with them. As we were in tight quarters and getting to know each other a little better, we had a little more time to learn about their families and get on a personal level. And I think those were some really great things that happened, ways that we could really build and become closer to our employees. And that allows us the opportunity to take an interest in them and understand their situations at home so that they can be more effective at work when we're providing for their needs, their home needs. Grateful for this chance to be here with you again. Thank you for letting me share some of my thoughts about the COVID-19 pandemic, its impact on business and healthcare. I hope you you have some good takeaways from this. And if you have any questions, I've provided my contact information. I'd love for you to reach out and let me know if I can help you in any way or share some of my experiences that might be helpful in your unique circumstances. Thanks again.